Man, they out here accusing Trapboy Freddy of snitching on Yella Beezy, man. Say it ain't so, man. Say it ain't so. Let's get into the video, man. Make sure y'all hit that hype button.
Trapboy Freddy is now being accused of snitching on Yella Beezy, and he just came out and told the world why. Two men who once celebrated their bond for the whole city to see are now tangled up in one of the ugliest situations Dallas rap has ever seen. And the reason Freddy broke that bond is more complicated than anyone expected. Yo, what's good, fam? We're about to break down the full story, how this friendship was built, how the Mo 3 murder for hire case blew it apart, what the internet got wrong, and what Trapboy Freddy has really been saying while Yella Beezy sits under house arrest fighting for his life. Because the truth behind this situation is deeper than any snitch label. To understand what is happening right now, you have to understand where these two came from. Both Yella Beezy and Trapboy Freddy are products of Oak Cliff, the Southwest Dallas neighborhood that has produced some of the most authentic trap music Texas has ever heard. It is a community with real history, real struggle, and real consequences. And both of these artists came up in that environment and made it the foundation of everything.
I ain't gonna lie, y'all. I still be playing Yella Beezy song. That's on me, like it just came out. Hey, don't be laughing. If you see somebody riding players, man, that's on me, baby. Hey, that's me. That's my song. To me, that song gonna forever be a hit. Like you just throw that song on, just ride to it. It's gonna forever be a hit, man.
Thing they created. Yella Beezy, born Marquis DeAndre Conway, came onto the scene through a series of independent mixtapes before his 2017 project Light Work, Volume 2, launched him into a different stratosphere. The song that changed everything was That's On Me, a slow-burning trap anthem with enough swagger and street credibility to travel far beyond Texas. That record took on a life of its
That man said, got all my diamonds on me. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, it's a hit, man. You ain't never heard that song, go listen to that song.
own, earning platinum certification from the RIAA and pulling in features from T.I., 2 Chainz, Boosie Badazz, Young Jeezy, and Rich the Kid on the
Boosie Badazz. That's Boosie new name. From now on, we call him Boosie Badazz.
remix. And one of the names on that remix was Trapboy Freddy. That collaboration was not an accident. Freddy was already in Beezy's world because they came from the same world. Trapboy Freddy, born Devarius Dantes Moore, built his name through raw energy and relentless output. His flow, his personality, his street-certified credibility, all of it resonated with the same audience Beezy had built. Songs like Lil Quita had built him a fan base that extended well beyond Texas, and his reputation as someone who kept it authentic to his roots gave him a credibility that mainstream success alone could not manufacture. But his journey had not been without turbulence. He carried a criminal history that included weapons and organized criminal activity charges. And in August 2022, U.S. Marshals executed a warrant at his home and found both a firearm and a tiger cub, a moment that somehow managed to become both a serious
Whole time, Trapboy Freddy had a real live tiger in his crib. Like, you got a tiger living with you. I understand other people did it, but it ain't like he was no super type celebrity or nothing like that. Man had a tiger at his crib. Crazy.
serious legal matter and one of the stranger headlines in Dallas rap history. That case resulted in Freddy pleading guilty to being a felon in possession of a firearm and being sentenced to 16 months in federal prison in November 2023. He served his time, came home, and by early 2025 was publicly active again. They ran in the same circles, they came from the same blocks, and when it came time to put together a full collaborative project, the decision felt natural. In May 2020, the two dropped I'm My Brother's Keeper through Hitchco Entertainment and 300 Entertainment. 13 tracks, a musical salute to Oak Cliff and the friendship that had carried both of them through the come-up. The title was not a marketing decision. It was a statement. These two were presenting themselves to the world as family, as brothers, as men who would hold each other down no matter what. That tape dropped in May 2020. 6 months later, everything changed. On November 11, 2020, Dallas rapper Mo 3, born Melvin Noble, was shot and killed on Interstate 35E in broad daylight in one of the most brazen and shocking attacks the city had ever witnessed.
And that was crazy to see Mo 3 get took out like that, man. I ain't gonna lie. I wish they could have set up their differences. I wish they could have did more music together or whatever, and all that beef stuff would have never happened between them, because it really wasn't about nothing. It really wasn't over nothing. And then it was times you seen them together and all that, but it's like, it seemed like, to me, because a lot of people be like, oh, it was the Roy Lee situation, or Roy Lee, or whatever his name is, the comedian dude that got killed or whatever, but they try to say it has something to do with that. But at the same time, at the end of the day, even before that, bro, they was just unnecessary beefing for nothing, about nothing, over nothing, like the littlest, pettiest stuff they was just beefing about, bro. When they could have been doing music together, getting money. Imagine if Violin was doing music together, getting money together. Like, ain't no telling where they'll be at right now.
Traffic cameras captured the entire sequence. Mo 3's car stopped on the highway. A dark-colored vehicle pulled up alongside him. A masked gunman emerged, armed and moving with purpose. Mo 3 recognized the danger immediately and bolted from his car on foot, running southbound on the freeway trying to escape. The gunman gave chase. He caught him. He fired multiple shots, striking Mo 3 in the back of the head. Mo 3 was transported to a nearby hospital and died from his injuries.
A Dallas rapper was murdered outside of his car on I-35 near the Dallas Zoo. Hello, I'm Steve Eager.
I'm Heather Hayes. It is a stark example of the city's struggle to control violent crime. Police say the victim, a hip-hop musician named Mo 3, was approached by the killer on I-35. Both men stopped their vehicles. The victim got out, took off, started running, but was shot several times on the highway. A bystander inside another vehicle was also hit.
He was 28 years old. A bystander in a nearby vehicle was also struck by gunfire and survived. The city of Dallas was stunned. The rap community was stunned. And law enforcement immediately began the work of piecing together how something this calculated had happened in the middle of the afternoon on the Dallas highway. Mo 3 was not a small figure. He had come up through the Dallas street.
And rest in peace to Mo 3. But why they just said in court, the van that was used in the Yella Beezy shooting came back to like Mo 3 people or something or whatever like that. I don't know if them detectives just throwing stuff in there, man. Cause from what I've been hearing from the case, it's like everything they talking about, they done got stuff off YouTube, they done got stuff off Instagram. But it's like, it ain't been no real concrete evidence. Like, I haven't seen none where they said Yella Beezy paid such and such, or a show where he done paid such and such to get Mo 3 killed. I have yet to see that check.
Music scene with a raw emotional style, part melodic rap, part confessional pain, that had earned him a serious following across Texas and beyond. He was hungry, he was talented, and he was building real momentum at the time of his death. His music spoke directly to struggle and survival, and the fans who connected with it felt it deeply. He had collaborations with artists across the South and a growing national profile that made his murder feel that much more senseless. His death did not just remove a rapper from the industry, it removed a son, a father, and a man from his community in the most violent way imaginable. The history between Mo 3 and Yella Beezy was no secret. The two had exchanged public shots at each other through diss tracks and social media for an extended period, and the tension between their camps was real and documented. Mo 3's manager, Brandon Ringwater, had also been involved in a physical altercation with Beezy outside a Dallas strip club in January 2020. Nearly a year before Mo 3's...
Man, they put all type of hands, feet, foots, and fists on Rainwater. They ain't gonna lie, they did whoop Rainwater, though. They ain't have to whoop Rainwater like that.
Death, which later resulted in a civil lawsuit in which Ringwater was awarded $325,000 in damages. The hostility between these factions had been building for some time. What nobody could prove publicly until 2025 was whether that hostility had crossed the line from words and lawsuits into something irreversible. A man named Qwan Dontrell White was arrested on December 9, 2020, just under a month after the killing. He became the first person formally connected to the case. In federal court proceedings, White was convicted on firearm charges tied to the Mo 3 shooting and is currently serving a sentence of 105 months, just under 9 years. in federal prison. But White being behind bars was not the end of the investigation. It was the beginning of a much deeper inquiry into who ordered the hit and who financed it. For years, names circulated in the streets and online about who might have been behind Mo 3's death. The Dallas rap community had known for some time that Mo 3 and Yella Beezy had tension between them. Diss tracks, social media exchanges, and a history of conflict that had played out publicly. Mo 3 and Trapboy Freddy also had a contentious relationship that factored into the dynamics of the Dallas scene. But for years, those were street rumors, internet speculation, and social media heat. There were no criminal charges connecting either Beezy or Freddy to the murder. That changed on March 18, 2025, when a Dallas County grand jury handed down an indictment against Marquise Conway, Yella Beezy, on a charge of capital murder for remuneration. The indictment alleged that Conway intentionally and knowingly caused the death of Melvin Noble by hiring Keywan White to carry out the killing for payment and the promise of payment.
And I ain't gonna lie, I don't believe that Yella Beezy paid Keywan to kill Mo 3. The reason why I say that is because if that would have been the case, Keywan had multiple times where he could have been killed Mo 3 if that was the case. I feel like what's the dude name? Melvin Brown, but Mo 3 was smashing his baby mama, putting pictures up with his kids on Facebook. Now, yeah, they trying to leave all that out. Now, I remember all that. The man was smashing the man baby mama, putting photos of his kids with Mo 3 on Facebook, Instagram, and all that. Then that man got killed. So now we barely even heard anything from Melvin Brown since Melvin Brown been locked up for the situation. So I don't know what he said or how he tried to spin it, but we can't toss out this narrative, bro, that the reason why you was mad at Mo 3 was because Mo 3 was smashing your baby mama. And that's how y'all really got the drop on Mo 3. Because he was smashing your baby mama. So when he was over your baby mama house, you knew he was there the whole time and everything. So I don't understand how they just threw that whole narrative to the side and then came out the blue and said, oh, no, Yella Beezy paid for the whole thing. Huh? No. Now, Keywan White and Yella Beezy was homies. So, you know what I'm saying? I ain't saying that he ain't never gave him nothing, ain't never gave him no money before or nothing like that. But at the same time, I feel like Melvin Brown was the one pushing to get Mo 3 took out. Man, hitting your baby mama and posting your kids on the internet, you will get took out for that. And that's what happened. So, I don't know, man, but we go see how the case pan out.
2 days later, on March 20th, 2025, Beezy was taken into custody and booked into the Dallas County Jail. He has since pleaded not guilty and maintains that he had no involvement in Mo 3's death. His initial bond was set at $2 million. The prosecution's case, as outlined in court filings and reporting from outlets including the Dallas Observer, USA Today, and NBC DFW, includes financial records that prosecutors say show Conway withdrew $40,000 in cash in the days immediately surrounding the killing. Witness testimony, according to the original arrest affidavit, has also linked him to the alleged murder for hire arrangement. Surveillance data and phone records were used to place multiple suspects near the scene before the shooting occurred. A second man, Devin Maurice Brown, was indicted in connection with the killing as well, though his specific role continues to be worked through the legal process. Now here is where we got to talk about the real question everybody has been asking. Why is Trapboy Freddy snitching on Yella Beezy? And to answer that, you got to understand that there are two separate forces at work here. One is personal, one is legal, and both of them are pulling Freddy in the same direction, away from Beezy. The legal piece is where it starts. Leaked court documents show that Trapboy Freddy was subpoenaed by prosecutors to testify in Yella Beezy's 2026 capital murder for hire trial. Let that land for a second. A subpoena is not a choice. It is a court order. It means prosecutors believe Freddy has information relevant to the case against Beezy, and they are compelling him to appear and testify whether he wants to or not. That is the foundation of the entire snitch narrative. He is not a...
I don't think Trapboy Freddy gonna tell on him, because I feel like if they wanted Trapboy Freddy to tell on him, then they would have said what type of role that Trapboy Freddy played in the situation, and they didn't. But like I said, if I'm Yella Beezy lawyer, the easiest way for him to get out this situation is to bring up the fact if he was gonna pay for Mo3 to get killed, he could have been did it. Mo3 didn't get killed till he started smashing Melvin Brown baby mama. And that's what he really got killed over. So all that other stuff, I don't know.
A volunteer, he did not walk into a police station and offer information. He was legally ordered to show up. But in the court of public opinion, that distinction rarely gets made. And once those documents hit the internet, the snitch label followed immediately. On the personal side, the friendship between these two men had already been quietly deteriorating long before the indictment dropped. The public image they projected on I'm My Brother's Keeper in 2020 was real at the time, but the years that followed put enormous pressure on that bond. Beezy's legal troubles mounted. The shadow of Mo3's death hung over the entire Dallas rap scene. Freddy did his own federal bid on the gun charge, and somewhere in all of that, the brotherhood that once felt unbreakable started showing cracks. By the time Beezy was arrested in March 2025, Freddy was not rallying behind him publicly or calling for support. He was doing the opposite, going on record about how Beezy had sold everything he owned just to make bail. That is not the move of a man who still considers you family. That is the move of a man who has already mentally moved on. But here is where the legal side makes it even more complicated. Freddy is not just a former friend commenting from the sidelines. According to law enforcement, he is himself a wanted suspect in the same Mo3 case. And that changes the entire dynamic. When you are potentially facing the same investigation as the man people are saying you snitched on, your reasons for complying with the subpoena go beyond personal loyalty. They go straight to self-preservation. That is the conversation the internet skips over when it slaps the snitch label on somebody and moves on. The why is never as simple as the headline. But here is where the story gets real complicated. Because when that indictment dropped in March 2025, law enforcement did not just name Yella Beezy. Reports indicated that authorities had also identified Trapboy Freddy, Devarius Dantes Moore, as a wanted suspect in connection with Mo3's death. According to sources cited in reporting from High Fresh and other outlets tracking the case, law enforcement had developed new leads that implicated Moore in plotting and carrying out the crime. Mo3 and Trapboy Freddy had their own history of conflict, and investigators were now looking at whether Freddy's involvement extended beyond words. Now fam, let that land for a second, because this is where most of the online narrative about Trapboy Freddy snitching on Yella Beezy completely breaks down. The framing you have seen across social media, YouTube channels, and hip-hop blogs is that Freddy cooperated with prosecutors against his former friend Beezy to escape his own legal jeopardy. That is the narrative, and it makes for a clean, emotionally satisfying story about loyalty broken for self-preservation. But the publicly available information does not actually confirm that version of events. What the reporting confirms is this: both men are being looked at in connection with the same murder. One of them is in custody and on trial. The other, as of the time of this documentary, has been identified as a wanted suspect by authorities. That is a fundamentally different situation than one man
But they ain't never locked Trapboy Freddy up behind the situation. I don't think they even questioned him or none of that. Now he did get subpoenaed to court for some, but it's like that don't got nothing to, it don't really got nothing to do with it. He basically could go in there and sit up there and not say nothing. They trying to hire him be like a witness to speak on the stuff that's going on. Man, he can go in there and say absolutely nothing.
Testifying against another. The internet, however, does not slow down for nuance. And when word spread that Trapboy Freddy's name had surfaced in the Mo3 case alongside Beezy, and when Freddy simultaneously began making very public statements about Beezy's situation, the snitch label attached itself fast. Because in the court of public opinion, optics are everything, and the optics were not clean. What happened next was predictable. Hip-hop blogs leaned hard into the betrayal angle. YouTube channels ran reaction videos. Comment sections filled up with people who had already decided what happened. The phrase Trapboy Freddy snitching became its own search term, its own headline. And every time Freddy said something publicly about Beezy's situation, it got fed back into the machine as proof of a narrative the public record had not fully established. This is not unique to this case. It happens constantly in hip-hop. Where legal proceedings move slowly and internet culture has no patience for due process, a public statement becomes testimony. A known conflict becomes a confirmed betrayal. And the people who suffer the consequences are real people navigating real legal exposure with real futures at stake. Let's talk about what Trapboy Freddy actually said publicly, because this part is verified and it tells you a lot about where these two men stand with each other. In April 2025, just weeks after Beezy's arrest made national headlines, Freddy gave a widely circulated interview, highlighted by No Jumper, in which he stated plainly that Yella Beezy had sold everything he owned to cover his bond and legal defense costs. His words, as reported by Hype Fresh, were blunt. He indicated that Beezy had liquidated his assets to get out and have a shot at fighting the case, and that it had wiped him out financially. He presented this not with sympathy, but with the tone of a man commenting on someone else's downfall from a comfortable distance. Real talk, that kind of public commentary from someone who was once close enough to call you his brother, raised eyebrows instantly. When you named the joint project I'm My Brother's Keeper, and 5 years later you are going on record about how your brother sold everything just to make bail on a capital murder charge, people are going to ask questions, and those questions turned into accusations. But here's where we got to be precise. There is a difference between a man who talks publicly about a former friend's legal troubles and a man who walks into a courtroom and testifies against that former friend. Trapboy Freddy's public statements, as of the information available for this documentary, are commentary from a man on the outside looking in, or at minimum, from a man whose own legal situation in this case remains unresolved. What prosecutors may be seeking from him, what conversations have or have not taken place between his attorneys and the state, and whether any formal cooperation arrangement exists, that is information that has not been confirmed in public court records or credible media reporting at this time. What we can say is that the falling out between Beezy and Freddy appears to be real, deep, and long in the making. The precise moment their friendship fractured is not publicly.
Nah, I think they gonna be cool. I think Trapboy Freddy had paid some for his bond or something like that too. But I don't think he gonna tell on Yella Beezy though.
Confirmed. But the weight of what happened in November 2020 and everything that came after seems to have driven a permanent wedge. When you are both implicated in whatever way in one of the most high-profile murder cases in Dallas in years, loyalty becomes a complicated concept. Public trust erodes, self-preservation instincts kick in, and when one man ends up under house arrest on a capital murder charge, while the other one is out here doing press runs, the contrast speaks louder than any diss track. Now let's talk about the financial piece, because Trapboy Freddy made it public and it became one of the most talked about elements of this whole saga. Court records reported by Hype Fresh in the spring of 2025 confirmed that Beezy's bond was initially set at $2 million following his arrest. That is an enormous financial burden for anyone. Beezy's attorneys eventually got that figure reduced to $750,000, and he was subsequently released on bail with conditions that included house arrest. Court documents filed in April 2025 show Beezy even petitioned the court to modify his bond conditions so he could attend his young son's football game, a request the judge denied. When Trapboy Freddy went public with claims that Beezy had liquidated his assets to fund his legal defense and cover his bond, he was adding a layer of humiliation to an already brutal situation. Whether that framing was entirely accurate, whether it was exaggerated, or whether it was the view of a man looking for ways to publicly distance himself from someone he once called family, that is open to interpretation. What is not in dispute is that fighting a capital murder charge in Texas is financially devastating and legally consuming. Beezy's legal team is working, prosecutors are building, and a trial date has been confirmed. Let me break it down for y'all because the courtroom timeline matters here. Yella Beezy was indicted by a Dallas County grand jury on March 18, 2025. He was arrested 2 days later. He has pleaded not guilty. His trial is currently scheduled to begin on February 2, 2026, with a pretrial hearing set for January 9th. The charge is capital murder for remuneration, which in the state of Texas carries the possibility of the death penalty. That is the weight of what Marquise Conway is sitting with right now. On the defense side, Beezy's legal team has been active in the pretrial period. Court filings from late May 2025 showed the defense issuing the subpoena to Securus Technologies, the company that monitors jail phone calls, ordering them to appear in Dallas County Court to testify and provide evidence on behalf of the defense. Subpoenas were also issued to the Dallas Police Department and the Lancaster Police Department, seeking full access to incident reports, arrest records, and prosecution files connected to the Mo 3 murder investigation, as well as records tied to a man named Theodore Thomas. The defense appears to be building an aggressive challenge to the state's case, examining the foundations of the prosecution's narrative and looking for inconsistencies, procedural issues, or alternative angles they can bring before a jury. Now, this is where we got to address one of the most important parts of this whole conversation, what the internet said versus what the record actually shows. The title of this documentary, like many titles across YouTube and hip-hop media, leads with the most dramatic possible framing. Trapboy Freddy revealing why he is snitching. And look, that framing gets clicks. It generates discussion. It gets people engaged. But the verified public record tells a more layered story. What we know is this: Trapboy Freddy has been identified by law enforcement as a wanted suspect in connection with the same murder Yella Beezy is on trial for. That puts him in a position structurally different from a cooperating witness who—
No, I think they would have been locked Trapboy Freddy up if they really felt like he had something to do with it. I think the only reason why they called him into the court to talk is because of that rap music, man, and them songs, and y'all putting everything in the songs and putting everything on the internet. Then the day Mo 3 got killed, you was the first one. Man, what's going on the expressway, man? What they doing? Like, man, it ain't moving and all that. So, you know, of course, if they combing through the internet, they go see all that. So they gonna want you to come in and speak.
Who voluntarily provided information against a former associate. His public mockery of Beezy's financial situation generated enormous online attention. But public commentary is not legal testimony. Whether any formal cooperation arrangement exists between Freddy's camp and prosecutors has not been confirmed in public court filings or credible reporting as of this documentary. What the internet did was take his public statements, layer them on top of his subpoena and wanted status, and construct a narrative where Freddy was trading Beezy's freedom for his own. That narrative is compelling. It fits perfectly into the loyalty and betrayal framework that defines street culture's moral code. But it is built on inference as much as documented fact. And when we are talking about a capital murder case where a man's life is on the table, that distinction matters. The real kicker, though, is what this situation reveals about how hip-hop culture processes moments like this. When Mo 3 was killed in 2020, street-level knowledge circulated privately for years while his family waited for answers. Q1 White was convicted on a gun charge. The deeper questions about who ordered the hit remained unanswered. Now in 2025, those questions are finally being addressed in a courtroom. But the internet rarely waits for that. It writes the verdict first and lets the facts catch up. And in that space between the streets knowing and the courts confirming, reputations are destroyed, and men who once called each other brothers get reduced to their worst possible headline. For Yella Beezy, the worst possible headline is already his daily reality. He is under house arrest, his assets sold off to fund his defense, and his petition to watch his son play football was denied by a judge. He is preparing to walk into a Dallas courtroom in February 2026, facing a charge that carries the death penalty. He has maintained his innocence, and his legal team is fighting hard. But the weight of this case, financially, legally, personally, is documented and real. For Trapboy Freddy, the situation—
I ain't gonna lie, y'all. I hate court. You know what I'm saying? I hate to see Yella Beezy going through this. I hate to see, you know, Trapboy Freddy be in this situation. I hate the fact Mo 3 got killed. I don't understand. Everybody could have just been doing music together and getting money, man. I don't understand what all the beef was about. And to me, I still feel like it was over nothing. It's crazy.
Situation is its own kind of complicated. A man who once stood next to Yella Beezy and made music about brotherhood is now, according to law enforcement, a wanted suspect in the same case that has his former collaborator facing execution. His public statements have leaned into mockery rather than support. Whether that is because the friendship genuinely collapsed, because legal strategy demands distance, or because the truth of what happened between these two and Mo 3 is something neither man is prepared to say out loud. Only they know that answer. What we know is that the streets talk and the courts listen. By the time Yella Beezy's trial begins on February 2nd, 2026, years of rumors, allegations, and grief over Mo 3's death will be distilled into a legal proceeding in which evidence is weighed and a verdict is rendered. Whatever Trapboy Freddy's role in that proceeding ultimately turns out to be, witness, defendant, or absent name on a court document, the friendship that was announced to the world in May 2020 under the title "I'm My Brother's Keeper" is over. Not because a headline says so, but because the events that followed that tape were too heavy for any brotherhood to carry unchanged. And for Mo 3's family, for Melvin Noble's mother and his children, and the people who loved him, none of this drama between former friends changes the fact that their person was taken from them on a Dallas highway in broad daylight, and they have been waiting for justice for nearly 5 years. At the end of the day, this situation exposes what happens when the streets that built you eventually demand something no amount of music or money can navigate cleanly. Trapboy Freddy and Yella Beezy are not just two rappers who fell out. They are two men caught inside a murder case that started on a Dallas highway and has since consumed careers, reputations, finances, and freedom. Whether Trapboy Freddy is ultimately viewed as a man who cooperated to save himself, a man who simply walked away from someone he once called family, or a man with his own legal reckoning still coming, time will tell. What we can say right now is that the Snitched label the internet attached to him is based on a combination of public mockery, legal implication, and the kind of speculation that moves fast in hip-hop culture and slows down for nothing. The courtroom will sort through the evidence, the jury will render a verdict, and long after the blogs have moved on to the next story, Yella Beezy, Trapboy Freddy, and the family of Mo 3 will still be living with whatever comes next. That is the truth behind the headlines, fam. Two men who once stood in front of cameras for a project called "I'm My Brother's Keeper" are now on opposite sides of one of Texas rap's most consequential murder cases. No blog post or comment section verdict is going to determine what actually happened. That is what the courtroom is for. Drop your thoughts below.
Yeah, man, I don't think Trapboy Freddy, I don't even really think he gonna have too much to say about it or whatever. But like I said, all that rapping, being in them songs, doing all that internet stuff, that's what got him pulled into the situation. But y'all make sure y'all check out the playlist, man. I'm out.